Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch Action News live.
And the big story on Action News.
Plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on. Always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
And welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the Labor and Energy Show with J-Doc and Krausey. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Boy, J-Doc, we've got a great show lined up today, and I want to thank all of our listeners who continue to tune in across the Jacob Network, on our radio network, and now starting to build out our YouTube and social media campaign in this year 2 of the Labor and Energy Show. Today, a perfect example. We're going to continue to educate the public with the facts, not speculation, not opinion, but real facts in terms of what's going on. Welcome in, sir.
Thanks, Joe. You know, today I couldn't be more excited about the program. So we have the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers on the broadcast. Okay, Martin Williams, who's the National Coordinator of State Legislative Affairs at the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers. What an incredible person. I've known him for decades, and he's just incredible. And then Sean Steffi, business agent, Boilermakers Local 154, and the president of the South Central PA Building Trades. And Sean, as you know, Joe, is one of the more dynamic individuals and personalities in all of labor.
Here's what I know, J-Doc. When Sean Steffi makes an appearance, the views and the consumption of the content go much higher. I often thought of pulling myself off the show and putting Sean Steffi in the box.
I mean, Joe, listen, I'll tell you, we both let Sean come on, for a couple of weeks, and you and I are out of a job.
Yeah, right. I hear you. Good stuff.
He's incredible. But you talk about educating, the people, but also labor and our political leaders, our policymakers, of course, on common sense and energy, which we say every week. But there's so much regular people like you and I don't know. One of the really cool things, you talk about the Boilermakers Union, and we're going to talk about it when we bring the fellas on, it is what an innovative union, right in the middle of the labor and energy space. Most of their workers work at the refineries and the energy plants. But let me say something. You want to talk about an innovative union with the innovative leadership? Let me tell you something. They're expanding the scope of their workforce. They're passionate about the environment. They also work in the energy sector. So these individuals are creating and expanding their scope of work in the energy sector. And I'll tell you, I can't wait to do the broadcast.
Yeah, we'll jump right into it. A message to all of our listeners and now viewers across the Jacob Network. If you miss any of today's program, or if you want to re-listen to some of the information on podcast, go to Apple or Spotify, search the Labor and Energy Show. And if you receive the video link of today's broadcast on YouTube, forward that around to your network. Send it to your local representative. Let's start to educate and get the word out so we can continue to change the narrative.
I'm sorry. I just want to say to the people, don't let educate you fool anybody like it's a boring topic. Everything we talk about today, you're going to learn something you didn't know, and everything we learn is going to impact almost everybody out there. So great topics.
We'll see J-Doc on the other side. This is the Labor Show, or the Labor and Energy Show, rather, with J-Doc and Krausey. Back in a moment.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch Action News live,
And the big story on Action News.
plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on, always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Welcome, everyone, back to the Labor and Energy Show on the Jacob Media Network. We've got a fantastic show. Like we said in the first segment, this is a Boilermakers special. Incredible individuals on the broadcast. Again, Martin Williams, International Brotherhood of Boilermakers, and Sean Steffi, International Brotherhood of Boilermakers, Business Agent Local 154. Gentlemen, welcome to the broadcast.
Morning.
Thanks for having us.
It's our
Thanks
pleasure.
for having us, for sure.
Absolutely. Guys, we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking about a lot about carbon capture, a number of things about what's going on in Pennsylvania. But I want to talk about the Boilermakers Union first, because very innovative union. You guys understand the what's going on in regards to labor and energy, and the innovations that you are coming up with, and what you do on a daily basis to expand the scope of work for your members, and also adapt to the world around us. And so, having said that, let's talk a little bit about, and I want to about the Boilermakers, guys. And I'll go to Martin first. Real basic. We're going to spitfire here a little bit. But tell our listeners a little bit about what the Boilermakers do, where you work, how many members, and how many people, how many of your workers work in refineries and energy plants. Martin?
So before I start, J-Doc, I just want to say it's been remarkable to witness the evolution of this program, which started as a few labor guys
Right.
talking about issues in the area, what's important, and now we're visual and and audio, and it's
Hold up, Martin. You just can't
to your
believe
work.
it. You just can't believe it, can you? We were
Amazing.
exactly. Well, you can thank Krausey for that, because obviously, he's our media guy. But yeah, no, thank you, brother. And by the way, what's cool about it is you were literally, as the former business manager of Local 13 in Philadelphia, one of the first people on board with everything that we were doing. So we have come full circle. You've been on many broadcasts, so it is very cool, because now we're broadcasting up the Mid-Atlantic and across PA. So thank you, my brother.
Absolutely. So, International Brotherhood of Boilermakers. We're a international building trades union, approximately 50,000 members, in the United States and Canada. And our members work in mostly heavy industry. Our members, service, employers in power generation, oil and gas, steel, shipbuilding, rail, manufacturing. And having said that, that's why we pay attention so much to issues in the energy sector as we do. Facilities in the energy sector provide many opportunities for our members.
Absolutely. By the way, out of those 50,000 members, anybody more dynamic than Sean Steffi?
I think you'd have a hard time making a case to name someone else.
That's not only in the Boilermakers Union, but in all of labor. So, Sean, obviously ecstatic to be doing a broadcast together. Talk about one of the things we've talked about many times, okay? Because like Martin said, Boilermakers Union, you guys are right in the middle of it in the labor and energy sector. But you guys, I think we've talked about it many times before. You'd be hard pressed to to find, other unions whose members care more about the environment, who take more part of outside activities like fishing and hunting than the Boilermakers Union. Isn't that correct?
Oh, you're spot on that assessment, J-Doc. And, if I could say for us in Western Pennsylvania here, I mean, we're more into the coal, natural gas, electric generation, and steel mills. And, down on the other end, where Martin's old area, has a lot of refineries and stuff like that. But you are right. Every one of us that I know in the Boilermaker Union Western Beach, we're all outdoorsmen. And I think that's one of the things that's like a big misconception, because we want the same thing that the environmentalists want, clean up the environment, but we want to do it in a way creating jobs and good labor jobs and Boilermaker jobs. And it's proven that our energy jobs are good, family sustaining, blue collar labor union jobs. And we're for all the above energy, but the solar and wind just doesn't bring it like our coal, gas, and steel. And moving forward in the future, we got to have it. It's a no-brainer. It doesn't take rocket science to figure it out. This is what we got to do. And we want to do it using carbon capture, hydrogen, SMRs, and that brings jobs. That brings proven jobs and a lot of jobs. And we want to bring it right here in Pennsylvania.
And it's interesting about this broadcast because, we try to break down the basic facts and the realities to what are going on. My point for asking that question about the environment is we're all passionate about it. Okay, 100%. We all live on, on the earth together. But we there's a trend, as we all know, and this trend is like a runaway train of shutting ourselves down. Okay, blindly, and with the thought that renewables, which we all understand are coming into the market and support, what's going on there. You can't just, like you said many times, Sean, you can't just push off a button and then go to renewables overnight. The impact, but even the discussion and legislating something, even if down the road, the mandates that are, out there in regards to electric vehicles, even if in 5 to 7 years, hopefully in 5 to 7 weeks, the people who were laying them out there realize that they're not reality, and they want to lighten up. Just putting that legislative on impacts people and has devastating impacts across the board. So having said that, we want to lay the foundation because, Sean, you mentioned carbon capture. Today's going to be a lot about carbon capture. Instead of shutting ourselves down, we should be coming up with solutions on how to capture our emissions, make sure that we create solutions to the issues rather than shutting ourselves down blindly. And you guys are at the forefront of that. One of the things, so having said that, okay, before we go into those discussions on a lot of the things going on, Sean, we mentioned renewables, and one of the things you talked about jobs, and Martin, you talked about jobs. I want people to understand this, because we don't just care about jobs and screw the environment. That's ridiculous. However, the narrative has to be, talked about in reality. Sean, you went to because you guys are expanding the scope of your work every week in many ways, and we've had many shows on a guy by the name of Dominic Lucero, who's a business agent who, by the way, grew up in Pittsburgh, PA, and moved to Pittsburgh, California. I never even heard of Pittsburgh, California, but he talks about all the, they created a committee to create new scopes of work for the Boilermakers, all those things. Having said that, one of those areas is renewable jobs. Sean, you went to a job fair for renewable jobs, and just to I want people to understand that we have an open mind, and we're expanding the scope of work in a lot of our labor unions, but there has to be reality. Talk a little bit about what you found out when you went to that renewable job fair.
Okay, we were in my building trades, the South Central Building Trades, which encompasses Cambria County. I had one of the largest solar farms being built to date. It was the Maple Hill Solar Farm, and they were putting on a job fair. And just so people don't think I'm full of baloney here, I got it right here. This is from the job fair, $16 an hour start, no experience at all. That is not a family sustaining job. That's from the PA Career Link right there, okay? That's the flyer. I went to that. That is a slap in labor's face, okay? That's not what labor stands for. That's not a family-sustaining job. And that got manned with people from out of our state, okay? And they're building it right now. That's the thing that it troubles me on the renewables. I have no problem with renewables, but let's hold it to fair wages, everything that gives us a shot in the building trades. The boilermakers don't have a lick in solar or wind, but we're still building trades, and we need to stand together. And we're going to build that. Solar and wind is coming. We understand, but that's not the kind of jobs that we're promoting, and that's not where we need to be.
Martin, if you will, jump in there.
Well, so Sean is right. When we talk about our vision, I guess, for the future and transitioning to to this low carbon future, a big part of what motivates the work that we do is to make sure that the jobs that are being created are going to be good labor jobs, ones that you can jobs that you can be proud of, provide for your family and have retirement security. And Sean is right. So $16 an hour is barely making it. Compared with jobs in fossil power generation or oil and gas that are 3, 4, 5 times that. There's a lot of work to do. We have to continue talking with our public officials and project developers to remedy that.
And so, having said that, we're just laying out there the realities of this. Okay, but yeah, $16 an hour. You like a job that you wouldn't have to be on public assistance, to also work 40 hours. So, great point that you made, and that's a misnomer that needs to be talked about. Okay, let's talk about some of the facts, and we're going to get into the carbon capture conversation. Okay. Sean, there was a recent alert, and I remember it well because it was on my anniversary on July 27th. The largest U.S. grid declared an emergency alert for that date. PJM declared a level 1 emergency for 13-state eastern U.S. grid and called on power plants to operate at full capacity during the heat wave. Okay. Talk about what that means and the reason for it.
So that is a great point to bring up. And this is the one that I don't understand why we're not paying attention to it. Okay. So anybody can go on the PJM markets and operations and look what the grid's producing. That's 13 states, 66 million customers. And that's what PJM takes care of. So during that date you're talking about, and I photocopied this. This was what the PJM looks like, and that's the grid, and that tells you what's being produced. So natural gas was producing, and then if you see coal, which was up here, it was producing. Nuclear is in the like burnt orange there or yellow, and then you see everything else, renewables and wind. It wasn't even close. We're taking care of ourselves with our fossil fuels. Gas and coal and nuclear is king. It's what it was. Renewables was only producing 11,000 megawatts at that time. And they were producing 149,000 megawatts throughout the grid. So that's like a small percentage. We're not ready to make that transition. Okay. We got to move forward with new technologies to support the fossil fuel industry if we're going to do it environmentally friendly. And that's where the carbon capture and the other things come into play. But I just wanted to show you this because I also have a snapshot of what happened over Christmas, okay, when everybody was saying fossil fuels let everybody down, it didn't come through. That's a snapshot of December 24th. Look what gas, coal, and nuclear was doing compared to what the renewables were doing, okay? It was still carrying a load. We can't get away from it. We can't eliminate everything right now. And like Rob Bear said on your previous show, we're crawling. All of a sudden, they want us to sprint to this renewable utopia. We're not ready for that. We've got to have an all above energy moving forward. There's no ands or buts about it. So I'm like, what are we waiting for? The data is here. We see it. We know what we got to do. So let's get on it. Let's get on it right now. Let's get it done. And the building trades and the Boilermakers, we're ready to build all the new technologies. We're ready. But we got to stop demonizing all of us in the fossil fuel industry. We got to get together, all of us, environmentalists, progressive Democrats, Republicans. It's time to come to the table and do what's necessary to keep us reliable on the grid, produce jobs, produce manufacturing, and become the leader in the Northeast and Pennsylvania.
And you know, the narrative there is, if we were to shut ourselves down, literally, if we were to shut, you know, our power plants down and you know, all of our fossil fuel driven plants down, we would be devastated immediately. They wanted them running on overdrive. Martin, what is the disconnect with reality and that? And that, by the way, hold on, that high-tech slide show that we just showed, just to show we're pretty high-tech. Thank you, Sean, for that.
Well, the disconnect question is one that we've been wrestling with for years. You know, it seems like despite the amount of outreach that we do, you know, and attempted education of the public, it's like we still get those questions. You know, folks don't understand where their electricity comes from, or you know how the pieces connect. But you know, so what you mentioned, J-Doc, is very, very scary, right? Every single weather event, you know, highlights the importance of you know, what the grid means, and you know, facilities on the grid, what our the composition of our power, you know, portfolio is. You know, and Sean knows this well. Earlier in the year, there was a Pennsylvania Senate hearing that was focused on grid reliability, right? And during that hearing, it was mentioned that some of the projections from PJM, as far as their reserve margins, you know, heading out to 2027 and later, are getting pretty low, right? And that is due to the like rapid deactivation of fossil units, you know, and you know, being replaced by renewables, right? And the pace at which that is happening, there's a significant imbalance. And you know, that message was then later reinforced at a U.S. Senate hearing that was chaired by Senator Manchin, West Virginia. You know, same thing, right? So the president of NERC said that the risk to grid reliability is increasing, right? You know, the pace of thermal power generation units is increasing, and that has to be managed in a better way.
Do you think, and I'll ask you, you know, do you think we need, you know, it's almost like you almost need to touch the fire. I'm being a little sarcastic here when I say it, but are people not going to, because you got a good point. People don't know where their energy generation comes from. We just turn the heater on. Okay. We turn the air conditioner on. Okay. You just go to the wall and it's right on the wall. Right. But my point is, do you think we're going to have to get bit in the butt before people understand the realities? I mean, because we're playing with fire like there's no tomorrow, Sean, if you will.
Well, you're exactly right. And the thing is, we've had that, like Martin just said, FERC and NERC and the PJM, they've issued the warnings. It's not like it's a secret right now. And we got to believe what these people were telling us. And that is the problem. That's why shows like this is great, because we can make people understand that what happens when you go turn that light switch on in the process, that electricity that's being generated to get to that point is way more complex than they understand. And the amount of work that needs to be done from the extraction of the mineral or the coal, the gas, whatever, the whole way to the generation is a massive undertaking. And we got to understand that. And it's just not going to happen overnight to transition to where they want to go. And we have to make them understand it, because the simple luxuries are just what you talked about, J-Doc. Go over, turn your thermostat up, turn the light on. That is in jeopardy right now. And I don't want anybody to get burnt, because when you have these severe weather events, that means that somebody is going to maybe pay with their life that they can't have heat or they can't have air conditioning, or you can't control what goes on with the weather. And that's the problem with the renewables. Mother Nature is in control of the renewables, okay? You can't call Mother Nature up and say, hey, put the sun out, we need more solar. Put wind out, we need more wind. But we can control what we do on the fossil fuel industry. Hey, we need more power, ramp it up, add more coal, add more gas. We can do that. And that's where we need to be.
And what we're saying is creating, and implementing technologies like carbon capture allow us to do those things and impact the environment at a very low rate. We should be focusing on those things. Let's do this. Let's go to break. We're going to have more from the Labor and Energy Show in just a minute.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch Action News live,
And the big story on Action News.
plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on, always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Labor and Energy Show. We're broadcasting up the Mid-Atlantic and across Pennsylvania, and soon to an area across the United States near you. And we're excited about what we're talking about. We want regular people like us to understand the facts about labor, energy, and our energy policies, and at the same time, how they're going to impact us. Let's talk. So we're going to talk a little bit about Reggie and those things. If we get the chance, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which we've talked about many times, but I want to get into the carbon capture conversation. First of all, Martin, you've been doing a little traveling, okay? And, you have, obviously you're at the forefront of what's going on. You took a recent trip to Europe to look at carbon capture in the cement industry. Okay, before you address that, tell our listeners what carbon capture use and storage is, okay, and how it benefits us.
So, I guess if I could sum it up, carbon capture represents a suite of technologies to be applied, whether it's in power generation or other industrial processes, to capture carbon dioxide that's produced during the process, and compress it and either sequester it underground permanently, or use that captured carbon in other beneficial uses. And it's a technology. It's a set of technologies that's been used in oil and gas for decades. But the challenge recently has been how to adapt those technologies to other sectors, and that's where a lot of the work is happening.
And on a large scale. I mean,
right.
We're talking about, instead of one of the things, and John Bland, who obviously was the former business manager of Local 13, said to me, when did we stop working together, uniting, like with our political leaders, environmentalists to create solutions? Okay, carbon capture is a great example of if we were all focused on the problem and now the solution to the problem, it'd be huge help rather than shutting our own grid down. The retirements are exceeding the what are coming into the market in regards to renewables, and so we're putting our grid at great risk. So, and that's because the left and the right, and the left hand and the right hand are not working together. I don't mean the left and the right. I don't get into that conversation, but Martin, talk about your trip to Europe and your look at carbon capture in the cement industry.
So like earlier when you offered those really nice compliments about the Boilermakers and how passionate we've been, I feel like one of the keys to that in fighting above our weight is we're part of a lot of like really effective coalitions, right? Including the Great Plains Institute, which has been focused on advocating for carbon capture for a really long time. So I was fortunate enough to be part of a delegation convened by Great Plains Institute to travel to Norway and Belgium to look at two carbon capture projects at two Heidelberg cement plants.
By the way, I was just in the Bahamas doing the same thing, but I couldn't find the plant. So I'm an iron worker. I would have never got into Boilermakers.
But you may need another set of eyes to help you identify it. So please give me a call if you if you want
you're looking for carbon capture. That's
right.
I got it, buddy.
No, but so I think after seeing those projects and the stage of development, what immediately struck me was the level of commitment from not the government as well as the facility owners, and so there's a recognition that carbon capture is needed. If we're going to meet our global climate goals, carbon capture has to be widely adopted, right? We need projects. We need as many projects in development as possible. And I remember during one presentation, and after the presenter, went through the technology and the process and what the expectations of performance was, and it was clear that project wasn't going to be like a perfect one and capture 100% of the emissions, but it was going to capture a substantial amount. And one member of our group, asked, what the owner's plans were for capturing like the rest of the emissions. And the response was, well, they're working on it, but they wanted to get started because something is better than nothing, right? And that's a very prudent, practical approach. And I feel like that's where, so you mentioned as far as what is the contributing factor to like not working together? And I feel like that's part of it. We have a perception from some who are critics of carbon capture that like we don't need to go down that road because it's too expensive or it's not going to capture 100% of the emissions. But we need, as Sean said earlier, we need all solutions, right? And this represents an option to move forward and keep those industries viable while lowering emissions. We need to do this.
And it's interesting because we need a layered approach. We've had the natural gas people on the program, okay, and that has been a huge part of lowering emissions. We need a layered approach. Carbon capture may not do it all, but one of the things that's frustrating, and Sean, you'll get this, is that when it comes to the renewables, okay, and the far left environmentalists, their answers to a lot of things when you talk about EVs and EV mandates is, well, we'll figure it out. Okay, they get the benefit of the doubt. Okay, where obviously the technology isn't quite there. We with the critical minerals and all those things, the answer always is, we'll figure it out. Well, same with what Martin just said. Okay, we have to start throwing everything up against the wall that we know is good. And I'm just obviously just making an example, an analogy. And we're all going to be working on it together and with a layered approach across the board. Okay, and that includes the rest of the world. Can't just be the United States, because that's what we also run into now. We're working on them, China, Russia, India, and everybody else, Vietnam. Okay, they're going to get. That's always the answer. But the fact of the matter is that, like what Martin said, we also need that opportunity as well, so that we could create a layered approach. So there's a lot of things in the fire at the same time. Sean?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things that I don't understand is we have, and I don't want to be like a global guy, but there's China. They definitely control the solar and wind industry. Okay, I think they make 80% of the solar panels, but they're making that with coal-fired electricity. Okay. And if anybody hasn't seen what just happened with the Canadian wildfires, the smoke comes everywhere. It's down into Pennsylvania. We've seen emissions are coming everywhere too. And they're up in their game. So they're not, when they say, hey, we need more electricity, they're not putting more solar and wind up. They're building new coal plants. Okay. So we've got to get on board. We've got to show the world and that we're leaders in carbon capture and do it, and other things, and we can do it. It can be effective. Yeah, there might be some efficiency problems. We might run into some problems that are unexpected, but we got to start somewhere. Just like you said, J-Doc, we're going to throw it on the wall and see what sticks. This is one. It's a technology. It's been around for Martin, over 20 years. We can get it going, but we got to get the ball moving, and that ball is going to be CO2 pipelines. It's going to be storage, pore spaces. And we're going to have to come up with legislation that legislates the pore space and the technology moving forward. And it will work. It's a proven technology. And that's what we got to do to move forward if we're going to burn fossil fuels, natural gas or coal. And it looks like it's really going to lean towards the natural gas industry. And I think that the natural gas industry is ready, but we got to be receptive to their needs a little bit on what it's going to take to move forward to get that carbon capture.
It's interesting because you mentioned natural gas. There's a new coalition, the Page Coalition, and Toby Rice of EQT, a big part of it. And he's an op-ed here, okay? And it says, over the past 15 years, and I'll just read one paragraph, the U.S. has led the world in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, thanks in large part to natural gas. From 2005 to 2019, the reductions from this fuel switching roughly equaled the total emission reductions of the UK, Germany, Italy, and Japan combined. And those were countries with the best track records for lowering emissions. Unfortunately, foreign coal usage exploded in 2021, and in just 1 year, the increase in emissions surpassed all emissions reductions made by the U.S. solar and wind and energy since 2007. Okay? You sit here and talk about everything that we're doing here, everything we're talking about, lower, the layered approaches and carbon capture, and in 1 year, they ate up all of our advancements. Okay? I'm only saying that because when you're working real hard like we are to try to educate people, do those things, and you see something like that, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, you can see that there's some, absolutely, it's like being in the twilight zone. And so, it's not, we're breaking our backs here in the U.S. to try to do this. We make incredible progress. And yet, if we really care about the environment, we should be thinking about the whole planet. And the answer can't just be, well, we're going to figure it out. We're going to make sure we get everybody, the World Association on Climate Change is going to take care of it. So, it's confusing when you see how hard we're working over here. Working together is the answer. Let's move forward. Martin, you talk about Minnesota Power's continued pursuit of carbon capture project in North Dakota, Project Tundra. Talk about that.
So that was another trip I was fortunate to to be a part of. Our Upper Midwest locals recently held a tripartite conference, which is designed to foster and maintain relationships with our contractors and owners. And there was part of the conference included an owner roundtable, and Minn Kota Power was part of that, and they talked about their ongoing efforts to develop a carbon capture project at one of their largest coal plants. And again, so when I talked about my my takeaways from my overseas trip, I had a similar takeaway after listening to the status update of the Minn Kota Project Tundra. And Joe, we talk about the need for these projects to be developed, right? And there's a lot of money coming from the federal government, and states are trying to put the policies together. But like, even despite that support, there are so many owners, so many developers that are having trouble justifying the business case, because they have a lot of like anxiety and trepidation about the future, or even more simply, getting financing. But Minn Kota is so forward leaning. They recognize that, one, they have to make the best decision for their customers, but they also have this global view of the need for carbon capture, right? If we're serious about addressing climate change and having every tool at our disposal, carbon capture has to be one of them. And they're willing, to invest the time and resources to do that, not only to help themselves, but to also help the rest of industry learn from their project. And I really found that a refreshing message.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a great example of what we should be doing. Let's spitfire, because I know we have about 6-7 minutes left. A company who, by the way, John Foltz introduced us to. Okay, B&W, Babcock. What's the name of the company? Is
Babcock and Wilcox.
Exactly.
B&W.
I'm an iron worker, guys. I'm sorry. I threw that one. B&W, right. The carbon capture contract, okay. They want a contract, to study, BECCS conversion, for a coal power plant. Let's talk about that, because we had their representatives on about a month ago, and they're at the forefront of what's going on in regards to labor and energy, renewables, and our traditional energy resources. Babcock and Wilcox, got it. So let's talk about that, because it's kind of groundbreaking. Sean, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, so B&W has been on the forefront with the carbon capture, and there's other individuals that are pushing it too, but they have started this project now. And, this is where Pennsylvania needs to get to. We also have this project started, they're starting in West Virginia. And as Martin said, North Dakota is already there. And these are the projects that we need to start getting in the commercial scale, moving forward to see if it works, which I'm sure it's going to work. And then the other thing, not only with the storage, but we need to start using the carbon capture as the byproducts of the carbon. We can build things like that, make things like seat foam, carbon nanotubing. You got all kind of different things that it can be used in the automotive industry, the Navy industry, on exhaust systems. So these are the things we need to start experimenting with. And I shouldn't even say experiment. They're there. Building materials that come out of the sequestered carbon to use it instead of just sequestering it. But that B&W is on the forefront. You had them on there. That project is going to take off. We also got maybe another biomass carbon capture project with coal that could absolutely happen in Pennsylvania, but it probably will steer towards West Virginia, that you could burn the waste coal, capture the carbon, use like waste wood, and come up with 100% carbon capture and a friendly byproduct and carbon. And it would help our forest by proper forestry. And again, there's another win-win for the environment. This is where we need to go. And I don't understand why we're not getting there.
Yeah, that's because, we're not working together. We're being, obviously beat up and stereotyped and, by, far left extremists who I can't even imagine aren't or don't understand they spend so much time bashing people and picketing massive billion-dollar plants, okay, that would help not only communities but also utilize these technologies
and put lots of people to work, J-Doc. That's the big thing. We're talking about a lot. We're talking about thousands of construction jobs, okay, absolutely. Building trades jobs with these. Not, again, I don't want to bash renewable industry, but if you're building a solar farm, you only need 10 guys and a little picker. If you're on a wind farm, you got 5 iron workers that are set. It's just not there. And at the end of the day, there's no maintenance with that either. And that's the bad thing.
And here's the Sean. And by the way, we had Christopher Riker, Senior Vice President of Babcock and Wilcox, on the program a few weeks ago, and back at June 21st. And man, I was blown away by that company. Man, they are, and they're a boiler makers company. And so, your point is well made. We are not, unfortunately, going to be able to get into every one of our topics here. What do we got? How much? I think we got about a minute and a half, 1 minute left. Martin, parting words from yourself, my friend.
Parting words. So I would say, again, thank you, J-Doc. This program is, it encapsulates what we're trying to do, right? We need to continue to educate, public officials, our colleagues, so that we can, continue to advocate for, all of the technologies that are going to be needed to address climate change, carbon capture, nuclear. We have important partners in the nuclear space that employ thousands of our members, hydrogen production, and we just need to, we need to keep up the fight and make sure that we create good paying jobs, for everyone.
Well said, Martin. Sean, parting words, my friend.
Parting words. We didn't get to speak about it, but I just wanted to bring Reggie up before we got off. But I can tell you, Reggie has united us as the building trades. Rob Bear, our building trades president, has stood tall with us. That's the best thing that came out of Reggie, and we are still here. We got a lot of bite, no bark in the building trades, and we're going to stand and we're going to push for energy jobs in the future, renewable jobs in the future, and they're going to be family-sustaining jobs, and we're going to push Reggie out of Pennsylvania, and we're going to get it done.
And one of the things before we go, one of the things Rob Bear says is Pennsylvania deserves its own energy policy. We shouldn't be jumping on policies, that have 13 other states in them, some that don't have any energy resources, natural resources. So, gentlemen, Martin Williams, International Brotherhood of Boilermakers, my good friend, and of course, my good friend Sean Steffi. Thank you guys so much for being on the program. The first of many, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, J-Dog. Great job.
Thank you so much. We'll have more from the Labor and Energy Show in just a minute.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch Action News live,
And the big story on Action News.
plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on, always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Back here on the Labor and Energy Show with J-Doc and Krausey. Man, J-Doc, I can sit and listen to that show or to your interview on today's show and learn something new each time I listen to some of that content. And a great job by you as well. Really informative for the listening audience. So informative that we only have about a minute and a half to do our close today. But great job today.
Yeah, Joe, thank you. And it was great to have Martin Williams and Sean Stafford on. And I just texted them both during the break and said, we need 2 hours, man. We didn't get to, half of the things we wanted to talk about. But no understatement when you talk about the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers, who, by the way, are largely responsible for us to be even on the air. So we do appreciate that. But you can see when you talk about carbon capture, you talk about a lot of the technologies. I mean, they're sending their people across the world to learn about these things, to bring them to fruition in the United States. And it's just a great group of people. And regular people like us should be out there listening to these individuals because we're only going to make it together, Joe. We can't do this. As you can see, we got to do it together. Environmentalists, labor, energy sector, renewables, and traditional energy sector all got to work together in order to do this, create these solutions and make them work in a timely fashion.
Amen. And good stuff and a good close from both Martin and from Sean. That's going to do it for this edition of the Labor and Energy Show with J-Doc and Krausey. Remember, if you want to re-listen to any of today's show or any of the previous shows on podcast, just go to Apple or Spotify. You can simply search the Labor and Energy Show. You can download the podcast and you can listen while you work or walk. Good content again, J-Doc. I'll see you next week right back here on the Jacob Network. From all of our listeners and viewers in the western part of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia, to all of our listeners down in D.C., Virginia, Baltimore, Maryland, Delaware, and then up into the Jersey coast and in Philadelphia and the suburbs of Philadelphia. We thank everybody for tuning in to the Labor and Energy Show with J-Doc and Krausey. See you next time, everybody.
Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch Action News live,
And the big story on Action News.
plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on, always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.